Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today's video is going to be a Q&A. I feel like I have not filmed one of these in a long time, so I took to Twitter and I ran a poll what you guys would like to see in this Q&A because I want to keep it kind of themed, and at the time I was filming this it was kind of a tie between general life Q&A and money Q&A, and I thought, you know what, let's do a money Q&A. That's a topic that I used to talk about a lot more on my channel. Shout out to everybody that's been watching since my budget videos and saving money videos and all that kind of stuff, and it definitely is still a really big interest of mine, but just something I haven't been talking about much. Probably because the past year while we were traveling, Matthias and I got a little bit sloppy in the budget and financial organization department, and now that we are back, that we have a place to call home, it's easier for us to get organized, so I'm feeling inspired to talk money and organization with you guys. So let's just get straight into the questions. But wait, I just said let's get straight into it, but of course I have to give a disclaimer. I'm not a certified financial advisor. These ideas are not my own. Everything that I know about money I learned from Dave Ramsey and books and reading and just listening to people that know a lot about finances. So yeah, not my original ideas. I'm not a certified financial planner. I do have a business and economics degree, but yeah, I'm not an expert in this, but I certainly studied it just independently. Okay, Kaylee Barnett asked, do you think it's better to spend money in cash or card, and do you think it matters? I think if you're trying to be really strict with your budget and focus on saving, of course it's better to spend the money in cash because you feel the pain as it leaves you. You feel like the full extent of what you are doing, whereas if you swipe even a debit card, it can get easy to feel like, you know, it's less painful. However, I am not one of those people that does use cash only. We were in debt and trying to get out of it and get that first bit of savings. We really went on a strict cash budget just to ensure that we were hitting the mark until it became more of a habit. So it kind of depends where you are in your journey. For some people, just spending cash all the time doesn't really make sense. It's just a big inconvenience. But if you really need the discipline and you're working on changing your habits, cash is a great way to feel the full extent of your purchases. Roxanne asks, what is the best advice you could give to someone who's moving to a new country and wants to save money? So I'm guessing you want to save money before you leave, before you move to the new country. My best advice, really the only thing that you need to know is that you need to pay yourself first. I did a whole video on this a long time ago, but pay yourself first. What that basically means is that when you get paid, you put your savings first. You put it aside first before you pay anything. And I know that this can sound kind of irresponsible, but just hear me out. This is a typical situation when people try to save money. They get paid, they say, I gotta pay my bills, I gotta buy food, I gotta buy this, that, this comes up, and when there is something left at the end of the month, I will save that. And that will never happen. That day will never come. There will always be things that come up that you need to spend money on and that feel more important than saving. Trust me, it does not matter your income. As your income goes up, this will continue to happen. There will always be things that come up that will be a good excuse not to save money. So that's why for me, the pay yourself first method is the only method that works for me. I used to struggle to save even on a strict budget because things would always just come up and then there would be nothing left at the end of the month. So once we started paying ourselves first, which by the way is a whole thing, I'm not sure, it's from some book or something, I never read the book, but I read a lot of people talking about this method online and it 100% works for me. So when we're saving, first thing we do when we get paid is save and then live on the rest. When you create that scarce environment for yourself financially, you will find ways to cut your food bill, to cut your clothing bill, to cut your transportation bill. Most of the time you will find ways to come up with the money. Of course, you don't want to save so much that you have no money left to pay your rent and health insurance, but within reason, of course, this number is going to be different for everybody. Oh, bless on Twitter, I'm sorry about the name pronunciation, asked, how has your budget money management changed since moving to New York? It has changed completely because now we know exactly every single month what our expenses will be. Income, still, we do not have a steady income, so we don't know what that will be, but we at least know what our expenses will be, which is really nice. So we have definitely gotten things under control again. We sat down, said, look, this is what our expenses are every single month, this is how much we want to save every single month, and we started contributing to our Roth IRA again, focusing on saving for taxes and just doing everything right. Basically, staying in one location has allowed us to clean up the mess and just get everything organized, all of our money in one bank account in one country, and that feels really good. I can go more into details about our budget and how we set that in another video, but I do think when you travel a lot, it can be hard to stay on track with your goals unless you have a really solid automatic kind of plan in place before you leave. But in my case, for example, contributing to a Roth IRA while you live outside of the United States is illegal. So we had to put a lot of things on hold, and that was super tough. We also did not know what country we were going to be paying taxes in this year, which made it tough to plan for that. So since being back, we can get things organized, which is amazing. But again, I can go more into the details in another video if you're curious about our personal budget. Okay, Zoe asked, how do you budget save money for traveling? This seems like a topic you guys are really interested in. A lot of people have been asking about this because you guys saw us traveling for so long, and you're like, how does that work though? How do you budget for that? And there are so many different ways you can do this. Obviously, it really depends on your individual situation, which makes it really difficult for me to give advice. You guys saw we traveled in more expensive countries, really developed countries where, you know, the cost of living is high. So it depends where you would want to travel to. But basically, when it comes to traveling long term and being able to afford it, you have two options. The first option is you can save up all of the money that you think you're going to need based on the cost of living in the country that you are going to before you leave. So then you're just going to have to hustle, sacrifice, and save in order to get where you want to go. Or your second option is that you plan on earning money where you're going to be traveling to. And if that is the case, of course, you need a smaller savings account before you leave the country. Very important to have something set aside because you never know what can happen when you move abroad. But if that is your plan to go over there and earn money, you're just going to need a small amount, but then you need to figure out your cash flow situation when you arrive. Try to figure out what is the wage that you can earn going to be in that country, because wages vary drastically. When I was living in Switzerland, I could work very minimal hours and afford a comfortable life, and that's obviously not the case in every single country. So you're just gonna have to do some research. It depends on the situation, but saving up everything before you leave is not the only way. You can certainly find work, find ways to earn money from abroad if that's something you're interested in. I have seen a lot of YouTube videos like ways to make money abroad or digital nomad stuff. You can look up that stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of resources on that, but I'm not an expert in making money abroad. I bartended my way through college in Switzerland. Pretty easy to get jobs in hospitality. You also have to keep in mind that depending on what country you're going to, it may not be legal for you to work there, depending on your visa and so many other factors. So you just have to do your research. A lot of people think if they go to another country, they can just start working, and that's definitely not true, and you do not want to break any laws when it comes to things like that. So make sure your permit permits you to work. Otherwise, you're going to have to save everything up before you leave. And of course, if you want to save more money, you're going to have to do two things. You're going to have to cut your expenses and increase your income, or both. So cutting expenses by taking a look at your budget at every single category. You can sit down and say, how can I cut expenses on food, on transportation, on going out, on entertainment? And then you're going to have to say, how can I increase my income? Can I pick up more hours? Can I get a second job? Can I start driving Uber? Should I start delivering pizzas? Can I walk dogs? Can I sell things? What can I do? So for me, it was both. I did both. I cut my expenses drastically down to the extreme, bare minimum, and I worked as many jobs as I could, as many hours as I could, for about 3 years to be able to afford what you guys saw us doing the past year, running around Europe without much of a super strict plan. So yeah, it's tough. So unfortunately, there's no easy way to answer that question. You're just going to have to do your research based on your individual situation. I'm sorry that I can't give you a stricter plan. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to move abroad. You gotta really figure out a lot of things on your own, but it's good for you. For me, moving abroad helped me grow up so much faster than if I would have just stayed home, because I really put myself through a lot of challenges. Okay, Ashlyn Eaton asks, do you and Matthias save for retirement? If so, how much do you recommend you save, if you do, how much do you save or recommend saving? Sending love. Yes, we do save for our retirement, and since we live in the United States, we opt for a Roth IRA, which, if you're interested in that at all, it basically means that you're putting pre-taxed money into your account, and you will not have to pay taxes when you take that money out after it grows when you retire. So that is the complete opposite of a 401k, which you typically get through an employer, where you put not taxed money in, and when you take the money out, you are taxed. That's basically the difference, if you did not know. And we save as much as we can, basically. We try to max out our Roth IRA. So in the United States, the government has a cap on how much you can put into a Roth IRA every single year, and it is $5,500, I believe. So that's all we're legally allowed to contribute to a Roth IRA, and we have not really managed yet to put additional money for retirement aside, but definitely it's something that we are working towards doing in the future, just in other investment vehicles, since you can only contribute so much. But I know what is recommended by Dave Ramsey and other financial people that I follow is 10 to 15% of your take-home pay should be put aside for retirement. Of course, that depends on your age as well. If you're older, you're going to want to ramp that up a little bit, or if you're really just hustling, you're trying to play catch up, you might want to ramp that up a little bit. So it does depend, but it's certainly an important thing to start while you are young. I know a lot of you guys watching, you're probably around my age, and if you have been neglecting your retirement, do not do that. It's just not worth it. It's really important to get in early, so while you still have the chance, do some research. Just go to your local bank if you don't know where to start, and they will definitely be able to help you. But it's just something that you cannot neglect, because it is definitely not fun to be an older person and not have any money. So I know when you're young, it's easy to think that things are super far away, but for most of us, tomorrow is going to come, 65 is going to come for most of us, so it is important to prepare. I think a lot of people our age think like, oh, I'm just gonna spend all my money because YOLO and tomorrow's not promised, but I just don't really believe in that kind of attitude when it comes to your finances. It's important to take care of that, because you cannot assume that anyone else is going to take care of you when you get older. And yeah, so I think it's important to plan for that. Okay, Shayna Daly asks, how do you start to create a budget if you've never paid attention to your spending? What is the ideal amount to save monthly? This is a great question, because there are so many people out there. I am guilty. I used to do this. You just get your paycheck, you just live, you just spend your money, and then at the end of the month, you're like, wow, where did all my money go? I didn't manage to save anything. I didn't really put anything towards a bigger goal. My money's just gone, and now I have to go work again. And I feel like that is kind of unsatisfying, because you feel like you're not really getting anywhere in life. And I know facing your finances is a tough thing to do. Like, let's get real for a second. It can be really tough if you have been ignoring your financial situation and you've got yourself in debt, you've got yourself in a mess. It can be tough to face it and say, look, I need to look at what's going on. I need to sit down, bust open, the files, the emails, and I need to know exactly what is going on and face it, because living with your head in the sand is not going to work. It's a tough thing to face. You will definitely feel, all sorts of guilty feelings, regret. You might be angry. You might deal with a lot of things, but you have to confront them, because there is no way out other than sitting down and cleaning up your mess, which is what Matthias and I had to do. We had to sit down and say, look, we've gone crazy with our spending. We've gotten ourselves into credit card debt. We have no savings. It's time to clean up this mess. And that was so painful to face. But once you face it, you can devise a plan and you can get out. It's in your hands. So you can make it better for yourself. So I guess what I want to say is the first place where you should start is looking, do I have any debt? You have to wipe out your debt if you have debt. You guys know Matthias and I are strong believers in living debt-free. It's opened so many doors for us, and it just makes me feel so much more in control and just happier. I love going to bed at night knowing I don't owe anything to anybody or any bank. It is a fantastic way to live. So you guys know already anyways that I recommend that. So if you have debt, you got to figure out how much do I have and how can I start paying this off. Again, you can look into Dave Ramsey if you have not heard of him. He has these 7 baby steps that will help walk you through the process. But yes, you got to confront all that, guys. You got to write all your debts down and just start knocking them out. And it's also important that you have a small savings account as well. In the beginning, a couple $100, just something to cover small things that might come up. And once you kind of have that kind of settled, you know what you're working with, you have a couple $100 set aside, you need to sit down and look at your budget and say, where can I cut expenses? I'm a strong believer in doing things all out, not going for, oh, I'm gonna cut my coffee every day and in 50 years I'll have $1 million or whatever. I believe really just go crazy, look at your budget, get extreme. You know, that's what worked for us. We cut everything down to the basics, and that made it go so much faster because I'm just kind of an all-in type of person, and I know that that might not work for everybody, especially if you have kids or depending on your family situation, but we were definitely all in. Let's cut down everything, every comfort gone, every luxury gone, down to the basics. So if you do not even have any clue where you're spending money on every single month, what I would do is go online, you know, pull up just a regular sample budget. So it will have all those things like insurance and taxes and food and rent and electricity and all those things. Write down what you think you're spending and then track your expenses for a month or two. See what you're actually spending, and then you will be able to see in what areas you are way overspending, you're living beyond your means, and then find a way to cut the expenses in those categories. There's all sorts of ways that you can cut expenses from everything from, you know, your cell phone bill, your food budget, your clothing budget. That's how I got into thrifting and buying used clothing, because I looked at my budget and I went, hey, you know, I'm spending $300 a month on clothes. If I could make that 20, that's gonna free up a lot of money that I can then save so I can do more important things with my life. So it is a tough thing to do. Anyways, I didn't give a real detailed response, but I think the more important issue here is that a lot of us are just living day to day, spending money, no idea where it went, when it is extremely important that you have your head wrapped around where it's going so you can control where it goes. Okay, Donica Christian asks, how big is your emergency fund and how do you plan and save for retirement? So emergency funds, guys, let's talk emergency funds. This is an interesting video. Some of you guys who probably didn't see my older videos are like, why is she so excited about this stuff? But I really am passionate about it, if you couldn't tell. Emergency funds. So again, this is a concept from Dave Ramsey, or at least that's where I first heard of the emergency fund or the rainy day fund. Matthias and I personally have a 3-month emergency fund set aside, so 3 months of living expenses just sitting there in a savings account. We're not investing it, we're not doing anything with it, it's just there in case of emergencies. And the reason that we have a 3-month emergency fund, which is on the smaller side, a lot of people recommend 3 to 6 months set aside. The reason we opt for the 3-month one is because we are healthy, we do not have children, we do not own a home, we do not own a car, so there's not a lot of things that could go wrong, whereas if you have a house, a car, kids, I think there's a lot more things that could go wrong or break down or people getting sick, so I would recommend probably a bigger emergency fund with people who have a little bit more going on. But for us, our life is pretty simple, and but let me tell you what's funny about an emergency fund. Once you have it, once you have that money for emergencies sitting there, I personally found that there aren't really any emergencies anymore. When we were broke and had no money, everything felt like an emergency. You know, a flat tire, which costs about 75 to 150 bucks to replace, felt like such an emergency when we didn't have the money. And as soon as we have that fund sitting there, we didn't even use it because we had our financials so much more organized that we always had the money in our checking account or somewhere else, or we had a way we could cover the expenses. So I think it is important to have an emergency fund because so many things can go wrong, and it just really helps stop the emergencies, or at least it will stop you from thinking things are emergencies that really aren't. And it makes me a lot more calm and zen having that money sitting there, because I'm not a very risk-taking type of person when it comes to finances. I want to know that I'm safe and secure and that everything is going to be fine. So if you don't have an emergency fund, you definitely need to start saving for one right away. Take the time to sacrifice and put that money aside. You'll thank yourself later. Okay guys, that's all the questions I'm actually going to answer today. I feel like I could do a part 2 to this. If you want to hear me talk more about money, please let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. Bye! And until next time, guys, don't forget, every single day you have the opportunity to take your dreams and put them into actions. So,
work hard, be kind, make it happen.